everybody. Kia ora tātou. For those of you who don't know me, a couple of people I don't recognise, I'm Ali Boswick, the Chief Executive of the Nelson Tasman Chamber of Commerce. And this is the last presentation of this whole series, which seems like it's gone in a flash now. And it's my great pleasure today to be introducing Miriana Stephens from Wakatū. When I first started at the Chamber of Commerce, on I think day 4 or 5, I was told that I was part of a governance group for the Intergenerational Strategy, and I had no idea at all what that was about. And I went to a meeting over in Blenheim, came away still thinking, what mind blown, you know, what was all that about? But actually, in retrospect, it's probably one of the most amazing projects I've ever been involved in at all. It's given me an amazing opportunity to be able to see something in quite a different way. And I really didn't know what I was doing at the Chamber of Commerce anyway, so it was probably quite good to be given something to hook onto at that point and really see it to the point where, in fact, we had a strategy refresh day last week. You know, in terms of our strategic context, the intergenerational strategy sat above what we do at the Chamber of Commerce, and I think that's what's been the most amazing thing. And Miriana is the driving force behind that, so it's been really lovely to work with you and great to see you today. Thank you.
Well, tui ko Ranginui I tēnei, tui ko papa tūnuku e takoto nei. Ka nui te aroha ki te hunga kua moe, moe mai rā, ngā mana e tau nei, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Ko tainui me mā tātua o ku waka, Ngāti Rārua, Ngai Te Rangi, Ngāti Ranginui o ku iwi. Ko tūau wharepapa me poki o ngā maunga, Motueka te awa, Te Āwhina Marae, tūra peke te tangata, ko Miriana Stephens tōku ingoa, o reira, tēnā rā tātou katoa. So my name is Miriana, thank you Ellie, and I come from the metropolis of Motueka, so when you're driving into Nelson on a good day, maybe 45 minutes in traffic. But I guess before I started, I really wanted to pay respect to the elements. So really, Mother Earth, Sky Father. I also acknowledge the place where I come from. So I acknowledged the mountains. I acknowledge the river. I also acknowledge the people who I belong to here in Te Tauihu, who are Ngāti Rārua. So for me, the people and the place that I strongly love and belong to is here in Te Tauihu. So that is my introduction. I'm also a director and executive. I have an executive director's role in Wakatū Incorporation, and we're a Māori family business, firmly anchored here in Te Tauihu. And I think this really freaks people out because we have a 500-year intergenerational vision, which we call Te Pai Tāwhiti, and that really means to be able to look out into the distant horizon. And the challenge with that is trying to sometimes bring that forward, whether that's in a year, 5 years, in a generation, and 100 years. You know, we had a 100-year conversation the other day. So it's fair to say there's not a day that I don't wake up excited, really scared. But at the end of the day, we're here to make a difference and to leave this place that we love in a better state than we found it in. So we do have our head office here in Nelson, but when we think about Te Tauihu, the top of the south, we don't really think about territorial boundaries. And I'm involved in a project where we've mapped all the plants in the region. And one of our elders said grasshopper, because I was saying, well, should I take the Māori palette, boundary in terms of where we're going to go when we map all these plants, or is it the local government? And he said, grasshopper, he said, the plants will tell you where they start and where they finish. Yes. So I guess from that perspective, when I think about it, we're across the whole of the top of the south. And we're in an interesting space because, yes, we are a business. Kono New Zealand, we export to 35 countries around the world. I run this new startup which focuses on health and wellbeing products, and mainly based in terms of supplying those products into Japan. But we also, when I think about it, we have these, and this is the work that I look after, is these intergenerational projects, because we are here, for a long time. So when we thought about some of those intergenerational products, because we are part of a wider community, and at that time we were having board planning, and we visited one of our Tūpuna, one of our ancestors, who lays in the cemetery in Collingwood, and we started to reflect about his life. And interestingly enough, he was a humanitarian, because when all the people were coming into Collingwood, because we had a bit of a gold rush happening, he made sure they had access to good food, they had access to shelter, and also raising, having a good community spirit or energy. He also owned, our families had 3 of the 17 ships out of the Nelson port. He had a couple of those, so he was also an exporter. He was also involved in enterprise. So really, you think, and Collingwood actually at that time was going to be the capital of New Zealand. So we were like, wow, anything is possible, right? So I guess when I think about what if, I was saying, what if we convened the opportunity to have a discussion as Māori, as the iwi, the hapu, as community, as business, in terms of what might a regional strategy look like. And I think really he gave us the courage to actually go out and have that ambition to be able to design. Now, to be fair, we didn't know what that would look like, but I think we went there with open hearts and open minds when we started to engage with the wider community when pulling that together. So really the strategy was an opportunity for us to really think about how were we making decisions in the region, and was it collaborative? Were they actually, when you think about those decision making, and often we think very short term, but actually could we push it out slightly in terms of some good long term decision making and planning and investment? Actually, what were the things that really mattered to the people in Te Tauihu? Could we actually start to bring those insights and those ideas and put them into priorities and get some actions from those? What was the vision for Te Tauihu? And we really, I guess, batted that around a bit, but what I loved about it is that when we engaged with the young people, their vision was, tūpuna pono, to be good ancestors. And I guess when I look at that through my lens, yes, I want to be a good ancestor, and I also want to be a good descendant. So therefore, that's really, I think, what we came up for, for the region was tūpuna pono, to be good ancestors. We were the first region to have what we call oranga te tauihu, so that's the wellbeing framework. So out of those 8 intergenerational outcomes came a set, I guess, of indicators or measures. To be fair, we really need to do that next stage of work, is to sort of see if they are still relevant. But what was also interesting is actually the data or the information that can support us to actually tell that story of how we're making impact, how we're progressing. The data, some of the data is poor, and poor are really in some of those areas around the environmental indicators, and it's all held in different places, some in local government, some with the iwi, some in Wellington. So again, the data project that sort of underpinned a lot of this work was also important. I think the biggest thing for me that came out of this particular project really was that people were up for it. They had the courage and the ambition to participate. I think the other thing was I didn't realise, when we went on the road and we had these sort of, I guess, workshops, and we had those workshops, and we were talking, we didn't talk about climate change, because actually a lot of people get really freaked out about that when you have that as a topic, but we talked about building resilient communities. We talked about courageous leadership. We talked about healthy communities. So we actually just changed up, how we were going to talk about that. And I always laugh because one of our colleagues, he said to his partner, babe, I'm taking the couch, it'll be gone for 6 weeks. So when we actually set up the stages, we had it in a way that actually, when we had our panel experts talking about their particular area, it was in a very relaxed setting. We had those workshops at Marae. We had them at the yacht club. We had them in places where we thought, people would feel comfortable to come into, or to learn a little bit more about what was happening in our community. So I think we got up to 30,000 on the online streams. So to me that really showed actually the impact, and actually people wanting to belong to something that was actually a potential to make a difference. So that was pretty awesome. But what we came out from, I just have to acknowledge, we actually, it was just sort of ironic slightly, but when we received the funding, it was through the Provincial Growth Fund, to do this, and it was under Shane Jones' stewardship. Shane Jones is back, and I was saying to somebody before, shit, we might be on to stage 2, you know. Anyway, so I think I might have to dust off that proposal and see how we go. But anyway, we'll see how we go. But I do want to acknowledge that. I also want to acknowledge, you know, our 3 councils, our 8 iwi, the chamber, NRDA, and all of the people who actually helped, because you can't do that by, you know, Wakatū cannot do this by themselves. They had to partner, they had to collaborate, and that was the beautiful thing about it. Some of the key messages that we got, and I've really just focused really in on 2 groups, and some common themes actually between the whānau, the hapu and the iwi and our young people, our rangatahi, was that they're not scared of te tiriti. In fact, they embrace it. They see actually, and from their lens, an opportunity for us to be better citizens, to be better people, to be good ancestors. So that was one of the really neat things about that. They weren't scared of using te reo. Mōrena, you know, in the morning for their teachers. So, you know, again, there was some good synergies there. What they were, I think, to be fair, concerned with is that we have got into a space where human beings are above nature, the well-being of nature. And so for them, that was problematic. Consumerism was, you know, taking place. Their mental health and well-being, and I think that was also the same for Māori. You know, we, if people aren't well, it's very hard for them to contribute or function, you know, in society. So where is the help and the support that they require? And so, and again, obviously, the other end of this was a pandemic. So the escalation of some of the challenges that we were facing as communities, you know, was there. So there was a lot, I think, of good ideas and also concerns that came from those particular groups. So I think your point, Ellie, that you made in terms of, because sometimes when you start these projects, you get so deep and thick into the detail that you forget actually how other people are perceiving or using the work, the mahi that has been done. And I was reminded of this yesterday. So obviously this week, our 8 tribal groups here in Te Tauihu signed the document or partnership agreement with our 3 councils. And underpinning that was the strategy, and also one of the 8 intergenerational outcomes, rangatiratanga. So around, you know, leadership, partnership, collaboration. So that was really, really great. Another project that's happening, and there's many, but I'll just sort of, I guess, talk about a couple. So Becca is co-hosting a national transport conference next year, and their tagline is being good ancestors. So again, you know, we've got business utilising it. You can see the strategy in the long-term plans for council, some of their climate response strategies. So that's great. And so I just really, I guess, wanted to introduce a couple of projects that Wakatū has been involved in that has also comes under the TTI strategy. One of them has been out at the Marae in Motueka, where we knew under the strategy that access to good quality housing is a problem in the region. So we've been able to build 20 new homes for families. 12 of them are in there now before Christmas. We're going to have a barbecue next week, so that's really awesome. But that project, I think, you know, when you think about those 8 intergenerational outcomes, it hits a lot of them. It hits a lot of them because we actually, when we went to go design those, to design the houses, we were very much cognizant of our carbon footprint, of our relationship with nature, so all the plantings, and actually that's been something that the families have been involved in. So we've really tested, I think, the contractors, you know, about how we actually start to design the spaces that we deliver the, I guess, the improvements on the land. So that has been a really rewarding project to be involved in because we keep coming back to those, you know, 8 intergenerational outcomes. Another project Wakatū's facilitating at the moment, we are the first Māori entity to receive funding from the biggest research fund in New Zealand, which is the Endeavour Fund, with Massey University. And that program is called Kai Anamata Mō Aotearoa. So it is the new Future Foods program for New Zealand. And what is interesting about that particular program is there's 3 strands. The first one is around New Zealand's looking for a national food system based around a lot of around data and things like that. So that will be important. And the reason why we sort of like that is because a lot of the kōrero that we had with through this particular project was that we're not very good at advocacy and lobbying. So actually, how do we secure our position, you know, as a region and as communities for those things that matter to us? So if our nation's going to have this, you know, new food system, we need to make sure that we are part of those discussions. So that's why we took a position in that particular project. The other strands also give us an opportunity, because as part of one of the priority actions out of the strategy was, how might we transition to a regenerative organic estate? We know that we are involved in a lot of conventional farming, which is fine for now, but actually what does the new farming system look like for our region? So that gives us the opportunity to potentially to frame that up, to have a look at that, to think about those indicators or those intergenerational outcomes, the monitoring and the measure of, you know, of our impact of our performance. So what does that look like? So we'll do quite a bit of work in that sort of indicators space. But it also gives us the opportunity to trial new ways of doing things, so new pilot farms. And Wakatū, we have really good programs around indigenous crops, taonga species. Out of the 2,800 plants that are in New Zealand, 1,639 of those you can find in our region, and there's 136 of those that are only endemic, so you can only find in our region. So from a conservation, from a food, from a nutrition perspective, there's a lot of opportunity. 45 of those plants have no formal name. So that's another, you know, exciting project that we've got underway. And then I guess that leads in nicely, because that project will be the, I guess, the flagship project for Climatorium here here in New Zealand. And simply the Climatorium is really, I guess, a space where we can come together and start to think about projects, start to actually get teams around those projects, and really in that, I guess, that tile in that climate space. So we met, and it was actually quite an interesting story, because our property team sent us over, they said, go and find the places where they're doing innovative stuff. And
it's the graduation.
The graduation, cool. Oh, I love graduation.
Yeah.
Oh, from NMIT.
NMIT graduation.
That's all right.
They'll be cheering down.
Cool. So yes, we meet a guy there called Lars, and my colleague who came with me, he was very much into stormwater management. So I was sitting there, and Lars said, "Oh, actually, we're building this what we call Climatorium, and you know, it's an opportunity for us to bring community in, bring business in, and actually start to think about our priorities when it comes to climate change." And then my ears perked up, because then I was thinking, I really love that idea. And I said, could you tell us a little bit more about it? So that's how I guess we got our partnership and relationship with Denmark, was those common synergies around a Climatorium. So here it's just, I guess, just a little bit of our journey, because these things, it's a bit like that shampoo ad, they don't happen overnight, right? You got to work at them, and especially when you're on the side of the world and you've had COVID, so you can't sort of, you know, meet face to face. But when I think about our journey, you know, really this is what it like, the road to Climatorium, this is what it's like. And we were fortunate that we received funding to really start to design and develop the concept of Climatorium, with our sister trust, not called NRATE anymore, but Whahurua, to actually start building the business case for that. And then this year, oh my gosh, this year, we held a summit, and we were talking about this, because, you know, when I think about what's happening around the walls here, and there's actually really a lot of great initiatives happening in the region already. It's just some of them maybe need a bit of support to sort of accelerate what they're doing. But that was a really, and sometimes we focus on the problems without thinking about actually, you know, how do we, you know, what if we move past that? So I was really blown away actually what we saw that day. So it was really a celebration. We wanted to celebrate all of the cool initiatives happening in the region. So again, we brought that under the banner of Climatorium. Our Danish partners were out, so it was good for them to be able to see what was happening in our region. We actually went to Denmark this year. We actually went, so with their Climatorium, they have a building, and it's a real beacon for people to come in. And there we had 2 days of school kids coming in, and they're all up there dancing and everything like that, but they're actually not scared of the climate change. They're actually, again, very solutions. I mean, the Danes, I think, are the happiest people in the world currently. And so everyone's like super hyped and super positive. And I think it's easy for them because when you think about their country goal is to be fossil free by 2050, that's right, their R&D, the way that they design their urban spaces, everything is focused towards that goal. I come back here, and my daughter, when I first came back from one of those trips, she said to me, I don't know what goal to sign up to for New Zealand. Predator-free, such and such, New Zealand tourism's going to make something. And I was just like, oh. So again, that comes back to having good leadership, thinking about, actually not now, but thinking about 100 years. And so therefore, we really did, we've seen that actually, I've seen that in practice. So for this year, for us, it's really been honing in what do we mean by climatorium, what does a proposed rollout of that look like for us here in the region, and that's been the priority. What's nice about the climatorium too, and I know we've had, a few of you, Richard, you've been involved in this, and so with you, Ellie, is that with the TTI strategy, we also thought, because one of the priority actions was to actually review the current leadership model here in the region. So we actually did that, and we call it Te Ao Marama, and it is a very, I would say, innovative, because we can't actually register it because it's not registerable here in the country. But it's a way of, we talk about community weavers. It's very much back to the people and being open, and and so I guess what I'm thinking for climatorium is the fact that the strategy needs a house. And so actually bringing it under the climatorium banner, and Tūpuna Ōora means to be good ancestors in climate. So therefore, there's the opportunity. So I talked about Denmark, and the fact that how they are sort of, I guess, connected, and they've got that goal for their country. So they've got money, funding, which makes things a whole lot easier. I mean, Europe is just, I know it's got its challenges, but if you think about where some of the global leadership is coming from, it is coming from Europe. And we even see it, when we think about our free trade agreements. We have one with the European Union, so we've been able to access, funding. So we've had funding from the EU, which is good, so we're not so dependent in terms of what's happening here in New Zealand. And when you meet with venture capitalists, especially in this climate space, they look to Europe in terms of what's happening coming out with the regulations. So because North America is a bit slow, so and they're actually basing themselves, the good VCs are actually basing themselves up in Europe. And the cool thing about where the climatorium is in Denmark too is the fact that it's in a town that is, it's a small town. So it's not in Copenhagen, it's in a little place called Limvig. And then again, when you see how they have adapted to climate change, they're not running away, they're not retreating, they're living, and they can't because where they're going to go. But that means that they have to have investment in technologies. There's a big education process, the future design of where they're placing their housing, how they live together, but like papakainga. So again, that takes a whole mindset shift, because the quarter acre section for the Kiwi dream and the young people, that's not on their radar. That's something that our generations, my generation, likes to know. So we've got some goals in terms of climatorium. We've put a big focus on the young people, and really getting them, motivated and pumped about thinking about what they see as solutions, because when they design the solutions, because they'll be actually rolling these out if we can get them up. So for us, that's where our focus has been for designing the climatorium, has been on the young people. And we've got some really excellent work, and the next, 12 months for us will be taking that first cohort of young people through and seeing if we can get funding to bring their projects alive. So and we have to give the young people confidence. We don't want to flit in there and say, we're going to have about 10 hackathons or something. We've had one, we take that first cohort through, to ideas and through to funding. So that's sort of, I guess, our methodology. But for us, it's a collaborative initiative. It's a beacon. It's an opportunity where we can look at those innovations, look at those ideas, get the investment behind them. You know, we want to have 1,000 knowledge workers, or entrepreneurs, businesses here based in the region. We think a lot about green tourism. You know, because of those big international collaborations that we have got going, they want to come here. So therefore, you know, how are we hosting? How are we looking? Education, the arts. You know, it's more than just business. So as I've mentioned, just on that particular projects, we're wanting on the ground floor of Wakatū. That's where we're proposing. We would like just to set up. And when you think about Climatorium in Denmark, they didn't have a building to start with, or a space, but they, you know, new fancy building like they've got now, but they just had a space where they could start the journey for Climatorium. So we'd like to do that in our offices at Wakatū, just to start with, and showcase all of the projects that we're involved in that is happening that would come underneath this. We are working with Denmark and the Netherlands around a call for a project in the Horizon EU Fund. Now at the moment it is based on stormwater, but you know we'll get one project up and then we'll be able to bring the others as we go. So we're really excited about that. I'm excited about that because I don't need another research program, but we've got another group within the Wakatū family who will be able to take that on. So that's really, I guess, a little bit of a sort of a snapshot of some of the work that we're doing at Wakatū that is nicely umbrellaed under the Te Tauihu Intergenerational Regional Strategy. And like I said, we're always up for thinking about what's next for the strategy, but it's, you know, it's stand here and think about what everyone's doing. Does make me feel proud to be part of this community and part of this region. And you know, looking around the walls, I know that there's much to do, but we're saying what if, but I think the next one is what next.
Well, don't worry, we've said that.
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions or anything. Before that, I think we should
we have got a few minutes if people have got questions.
I've got 27.
Oh, well, you're going to have a separate conversation.
Oh, sorry.
So if you start with one, Richard, Richard had
Yeah.
one. Yeah, Richard.
Oh, Kia ora, Miriana. You know, I've seen, you know, all the great work that you guys have been doing on this for so long, but I guess what I'm really wondering is, at the stage that we're at now, post-COVID, you know, you're getting closer to bringing the Climatorium to life. What kind of support either are you looking for, or could the community provide to help you be more successful with these efforts? What does that look like?
Great question. Thanks. Thanks for that, Richard. I mean, what I'd like to see is actually if there were initiatives that were aligned with Climatorium, you know, would they come in potentially sit with us to start with? You know, because it's just getting that sort of community, I guess, you know, sort of up and going. I think next year's program we are looking at having, because a lot of stuff is around education lift and shift, if I'm honest. And so is there an opportunity to get into a really good seminar series or something that we could actually have where we can, you know, start to get people in and because whilst we've got the ideas, we don't claim to know everything. So, you know, who would like to be part of the journey with us? So we're quite open to, you know, to what that looks like, Richard, and also to know what other people are doing, because perhaps we don't have to reinvent the wheel either. Of course, resourcing, investment, funding is always helpful as well. But what I know, when you run these big programs, there is a couple of things. It's having a good plan, good people, and good resourcing.
Over to you, Lindsay.
Kia ora, Miriana. Thanks not only for your story, but for the wisdom embedded in it too. Very special. I've got a comment and then a question. The comment is you talked about the intergenerational strategy, Tūpuna Pono, sort of being adopted elsewhere in New Zealand. The world needs climate leaders and leaders in doing what you're doing as well. And so I'm delighted with your overseas thing, but I'm just saying, let's not just limit it to New Zealand. I think we really need that. But my question for you, question one, the Future Foods program you mentioned, that sounded fascinating, amazing facts that you recited about the plants. That implicit in that is almost like the present food thing isn't working quite right. And so I'd like to know a little bit about the background that propelled the Future Foods program idea.
Yeah, great. I think we have, and I'm just talking about our families, have fallen in, we don't eat well. We've lost our connection to the land. And so a lot of our projects have been reconnecting whānau back to whenua. And of course the good way to do that is through food. It's through being able to grow your food. So I think from a health and wellness perspective, you know, what we want our people to be healthy, and of course there has these knock-on effects of that because we invite the community in as well. So we decided, and actually we went to Peru to look at other sort of indigenous models. And I think that was really a turning point, if I'm honest, for the leadership for Wakatū, because when we went there, we you know, think about our own leadership models and things like that. When they introduced us, they introduced themselves, so I'm the governor of the water, I'm the governor of the mountain. So they are inherently connected with nature. And so we're like, oh my God, well, I was going to tell my thing, I'm a, you know, through whakapapa, you know, but I'll go back to my mountain too, of course. So, you know, that was the turning point. Their system there is that they are the kaitiaki, I guess, or the custodians of a seed bank which houses all of the sweet potato and potato genetics or cultivars. And they're already adapting to climate change. They have to, right? Because if they don't have food, they're not going to survive. So from a resilience perspective, so their community is fed first. So when they asked us, where does your food go? Well, some of it goes in a container. Right, so it's like, oh, right, okay. So I've been having all of these moments, which is, you know, which is totally fine. So, and so of course when we were there, I've never eaten so many potatoes for breakfast with, you know, potatoes and the alcohol. Oh my God, this is like relentless. But what I guess the other thing is what I saw too was the fact that from a traditional knowledge and customary practice, you know, they're very tuned into that. And so when they had COVID, was in Peru, and just outside the community, they didn't have COVID in their community, but they knew that they would be able to feed all of those people out there for 100 years.
Wow.
So from a resilience perspective, we actually saw that firsthand. How they code their genetics was through their weaving patterns. Now we've got some challenges, I think, with some of the work, and you know, again, there'll be big conversations around GE, GMO, and all that sort of stuff coming out, I think, next year. But for me, that really, that they were, you know, they had their destiny, they had their purpose, they were clear about what they were doing. So we went, so in the last, when we entered, they go, oh, okay, we would like to give you our genetics, because from a resilience, they also want to have some of that stuff in other parts of the world. And anyway, we were like, whoa, okay, we probably cannot, on behalf, there's only 3 of us here today, but you know, we need to go back and talk to the family, because that is a privilege and an honour, and we need to make sure that we are set up to be able to do that. So we came back, and they were actually going to come out and visit us, so we go, oh my God, we better chuck some tūpuna in there, and, you know, because they were coming, but then COVID came. But what we did was we said, actually, let's get back to basics. Let's look at our land, let's look at where we can grow some of our traditional crops, and we just started. And we saw the people coming back. So they started coming back. We've introduced our traditional practices through prayer, through karakia, through waiata, through the songs that we sing to the plants, you know, the way that we're harvesting, bringing the best of technology and all of those sorts of things, but from a values-based perspective. So that's really, I think, and now I've never had so many kamo-kamos, you know, and there's only so much chutney you can make there. The aunties tell me at the marae. So I guess, you know, and that has been probably the most, you know, connecting to all of those, the family, but back to the land. Really, really powerful. Fantastic. So that's the basis of what, and then now we've got the plants. We've just finished all the lizards and the skunks, so these animals. So, you know, when I think about Motueka, and when traditionally it was called Te Mātu, which is the big garden, well, it started from when you come from like Tauihu right through out to Kaitiri. that was all forest, it was food, it was shelter, it was all of those things. So that is the hope, that we can return to that estate, and we're so lucky that we saw custodians of land, and big, thing that we can potentially do that transition. So, but we need the programs like the Future Foods, but based on our Te Āwhina and values, to roll that out.
Kia ora for that. That's great.
I'm going to probably have to draw that to a close. I know
Yeah.
you've probably got a whole
No,
list of
no.
questions, but because it's just after 1. But so we're just going to thank you again, because that was just you were the whole day. I am going to just pass over to Anne now, as it's the last session. Anne.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming. This has been the most extraordinary project, and I don't think when we set up this makeshift space and were loaned this property by the property owners, we ever perceived what it could generate. And Tracy and I just did a little count up. In 5 weeks, we've We've had 25 lunchtime talks, 4 after 5 p.m. talks, 62 presenters, including the students from Hampden Street School, and we've had 3 speakers that have arrived from outside Nelson. We've not even funded those speakers. They've been gifted by other people in the community. So this has been an amazingly community-led project that all sorts of people have participated in and contributed to. We've uploaded nearly 200 ideas for our website online, and they're still coming in. And if you missed out on some of the talks, you can watch them online. These are the themes. Water. Our community want to connect more easily to our river and the ocean. Shade. We want green spaces to congregate under. Pride. We want a clean city we can be proud of. Arts and heritage. We want to celebrate our creativity in our urban landscape. Storytelling. We want to share the stories of our mana whenua and our shared heritage. Communication. We want to know what's on, what's open, what's happening where and when. Youth. Our youth want a place to call their own. Social connection. We want spaces where we can socialise. There's more. So, as Miriana said, our challenge now with the collective of brains that have been involved in this place is what next. So we've had what if, and what next I think is a great challenge, and I think we've got the people to lead part of that conversation and action, and it's about collaborating and partnerships and what we can all do to make this city that we all love a whole lot better. So anyway, thank you so much, and we're now taking a well-earned break, and we'll come back refreshed to work on what next, Nelson. Yeah.
Thanks, Anne.
And I would just like to add to that, probably on behalf of Richard as well, and a few other people in a rather loose grouping of individuals who got behind this, to really thank Anne for the work that you've done here, and also Tracy. It's just been phenomenal. We all have these ideas and we all think it's a good idea, but somebody's actually got to take the lead and make it happen, and that's it's the only way that things happen is to